So I'm hoping that all of us here might meet a new person, hear a new thing, find something together today in this community that changes our lives for the better the next day and the next. Now, actually, in thinking about today, there were so many things to say in a short time that I found myself reduced to making a top 10 list like David Letterman. For instance, 10, don't ever believe that men can't change. For most of my life, I was told that due to fine motor skills that only women had, only women could type. If you don't think so, look at Mad Men, those of you who are too young to remember this. Then suddenly computers appeared, and voila, men could type. The moral of this story is that we can change men and the world to fit women, not just women to fit men and the world. 9, all grown-ups should be able to get married as long as they don't hit each other. But I hope we stop thinking that only lifetime partnerships mean success. As Margaret Mead often pointed out, marriage worked better in the 19th century because people only lived to be 50. Now that we're living 3 decades longer and have our own paychecks, such as they are, some of us will marry early, raise children, and then go off to different lives. Others will marry late or not at all, or nurture people we didn't give birth to. And some of us are going to do all of the above serially. 8, nobody prepares you for this, but former lovers become family. All the more so now that women like ourselves well enough to fall in love with people who like us as we are. Even at my age, I had the good luck to have a college fiancé who remained my friend, as did his daughters and at least one of his wives. When that wife asked me to speak at his funeral, though she wasn't going to speak herself, she said, quote, "I would be angry and inappropriate. You weren't married to him, you'll be fine." You can't make this up, right? It really is. At that moment, all of us were a family. 7, we've demonstrated to the American majority satisfaction that women can do what men can do, but we haven't convinced even ourselves that men can do what women do. Which is not so smart because, number 6, nothing much is going to change until men are raising children as much as women are. Not only will women go right on having 2 jobs, which is impossible. Superwoman was created by anti-feminists who were trying to say that men don't have to do it all to have it all, but women somehow have to do it all to have it all. But it means that female authority will seem appropriate to childhood and not to high places. True, every pioneer helps, from Shirley Chisholm to Hillary, but women won't be equal outside the home until men are equal inside the home. 5, all parents, men as well as women, need to get mad. This is the only modern democracy in the world without some national system of child care, family-friendly work policies, actual sex education as opposed to the abstinence-only variety that we have, and yes, government health care. Get mad. 4, my generation of women thought that your life and your looks kind of went out the window when you were 30, and the demands of husband and children took over. It seems to me that this generation of young women in their 20s now think that life is over if success hasn't arrived by 30, right? So from the bottom of my heart, I want to say life gets greater and more surprising after 40, 50, 60, and yes, 70. Three, from nation states and national borders to gender, race, and even generations, all categories are fictions. Reality isn't about ranking, it's about linking. 2, women got in this jam because our bodies are the means of reproduction, and various male-dominant systems control reproduction, or try to, and thus control us. The only way out is to establish reproductive freedom as a fundamental human right. Finally, something else you already know, and that is that everything we think of as a social justice movement, everything that's about balance with each other and nature, balance between self-authority and resistance to unjust authority, they are all connected. They are all one movement. Given the last election and the massive media effort to separate race and sex as if they were competitive, as if a big percentage of the country and more than half the world weren't affected by both, I put as number one reason why they are inextricably intertwined. I don't mean to sound didactic here, and I'm afraid I'm leaving Letterman behind, but this is the only way I know to say it simply. To preserve any racial hierarchy, you need so-called racial purity, or at least visible difference. Therefore, females of the so-called superior group have to be controlled by men of that group. To preserve a supply of workers marked by race as cheap labor, women of color are more likely to be sexually exploited. So yes, there is a big difference in the way racism is lived by white women and by women of color in this country. But the past, present, and future truth is that racism punishes all women because our bodies are controlled in order to reproduce and maintain that racial difference. As a black suffragist said to her white suffragist sisters, a pedestal is as much a prison as any small space. And until we learn this, we will not have one true movement. Currently, it's still hidden in plain sight by calling what happens to men politics and what happens to women culture, or ignoring the not always conscious but existing coalition in which a racial voting gap favors gender equality and a gender gap favors racial equality. Imagine how that coalition could grow if we were not cynically divided, if it were truly named and supported. That's the end of my David Letterman list. However, it seemed to me that it was very much in the past and in the present. And I think we all form